In the quiet moments of the night, when the noise of the world begins to fade, when the heart becomes softer and the mind searches for rest, stories take on a different meaning. They are no longer just words. They become companions. They become comfort. This is one of those stories meant to be told slowly, gently, and with care. Long ago, in a land surrounded by hills and open skies, lived a man named Yunus. He was not a king. He was not wealthy. He did not seek power or recognition. Yunus was a prophet chosen to guide his people with patience, wisdom, and compassion. Each day, he walked among them quietly. He spoke not with force, but with sincerity. His words were calm, his tone gentle. He reminded them of kindness. He warned them of harm. He asked them to reflect, to turn back from wrongdoing, and to remember the one who created them. Some listened, if only for a moment. Many did not. Days passed. Weeks turned into months. Months into years. Yunus watched as the same mistakes were repeated again and again. Hearts grew harder. Ears closed. His words, once heard, were now ignored. And slowly, quietly, a weight began to form inside him. It was not anger. It was not pride. It was weariness. The weariness of speaking without being heard. The weariness of caring deeply while seeing no change. The weariness of patience stretched thin. At night, Yunus would sit alone beneath the open sky. The stars shone softly above him, silent witnesses to his thoughts. He would reflect on his mission, on his people, on the endless repetition of hope followed by disappointment. He wondered if his efforts had meaning. He wondered if his presence still mattered. And one evening, as the sky darkened and the wind grew still, Yunus made a decision. Believing that his people would never change, he chose to leave. Not in anger. Not in rebellion. But in quiet resignation. He left without announcement. Without farewell. Without looking back. His footsteps carried him away from familiar streets and familiar faces, into open land where the horizon stretched endlessly. The farther he walked, the lighter the world seemed, and yet, the heavier his heart became. Eventually, the scent of salt reached his senses. The sea lay before him. It was vast and calm, its surface reflecting the pale glow of the moon. Gentle waves whispered against the shore, and the night air felt cool and still. Nearby, a ship rested at the edge of the water, wooden and worn, yet steady. Yunus stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet rhythm of the waves. Then he stepped aboard. The ship began its journey slowly, gliding across the water as if carried by breath alone. The night remained peaceful. The stars shimmered above, and for a brief moment, it felt as though all was well. But peace, like the sea, can change without warning. The wind shifted. The waves grew restless. The calm night gave way to darkness and force. Suddenly, the ship was no longer gliding, it was fighting. Waves crashed against its sides. The wood groaned. The sailors shouted as fear spread across their faces. This was no ordinary storm. The sailors knew it. They felt it in their bones. In desperation, they decided that someone aboard must be cast into the sea to save the rest. They drew lots, trusting fate to decide what reason could not. And the lot fell upon Yunus. Once. Again. And again. Each time, the same result. Yunus understood. He did not argue. He did not plead. In the chaos of wind and water, his heart was strangely calm. He stepped forward. And without resistance, he allowed himself to fall into the sea. The water closed over him. Cold. Dark. Endless. He sank beneath the surface, the sounds of the storm fading until there was only silence. And then, something extraordinary. From the depths of the ocean, by the command of Allah, a great whale appeared. It swallowed Yunus gently, without crushing him, without harm. Suddenly, there was no sea, no sky, no storm, only darkness. Inside the whale, Yunus was surrounded by complete silence. There was no light, no sense of time, no direction. He could not tell how long he had been there, minutes, hours, days. Only stillness. In that deep, suffocating darkness, Yunus was alone with his thoughts. And there, in that place where nothing else existed, understanding came to him. He realized that leaving his people had been a mistake. He realized that patience had been required, even when it felt impossible. He realized that running away had not freed him, it had brought him here. Yet even in that realization, something else became clear. He was not abandoned. Even here, Allah was near. With a heart softened by humility, Yunus began to pray. Not loudly, not in desperation, but quietly, sincerely. There is no God but you. Glory be to you. Indeed, I was among the wrongdoers. The words were soft, but they carried great weight. They echoed within the darkness, through the body of the whale, through the depths of the sea. The whale moved gently, guided by divine command, as Yunus continued his prayer again and again, slowly, calmly, with complete surrender. And though he was surrounded by darkness, mercy was already moving toward him. This was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of transformation. And as the ocean carried him forward, wrapped in silence and faith, change was already unfolding, unseen, but certain. Inside the belly of the whale, time no longer moved the way it did on land. There was no sunrise, no sunset, no sound of waves crashing, no voices, only darkness. A darkness so complete that Yunus could not see his own hands. A darkness layered upon darkness, the darkness of the night, the darkness of the deep sea, and the darkness within the whale itself. At first, the stillness felt overwhelming. Every breath reminded him of where he was. Every movement echoed softly against flesh and water. Every thought felt louder than the one before it. And yet, slowly, something began to change. Yunus was no longer thinking about his people. He was no longer thinking about the ship. He was no longer thinking about escape. He was thinking about himself. Not with pride, not with self-defense, but with honesty. He remembered the early days of his mission, when his heart was full of patience, when his hope was strong, when rejection did not feel like failure. He remembered how gently he had spoken, how deeply he had cared. And he remembered the moment when weariness replaced trust. Not suddenly, not loudly, but quietly. He realized that his mistake had not been anger toward his people, it had been doubt in the wisdom of Allah's timing. In the belly of the whale, there was nowhere to hide from that truth. And so Yunus turned inward and upward. With each breath, he whispered the words again. There is no God but you. Glory be to you. Indeed, I was among the wrongdoers. He did not rush the words. He did not repeat them mindlessly. Each time he spoke them, he meant them more deeply than before. The whale moved gently through the water, its massive body gliding through the depths as if carrying a precious trust. Yunus felt the motion, slow, steady, controlled. He was not being punished. He was being protected. The darkness became a place of reflection. The silence became a place of connection. Days passed, or perhaps it was nights, Yunus could not tell. Hunger came and went. Weakness touched his body, but peace began to settle into his heart. He understood now that being chosen as a prophet did not mean being free from mistakes. It meant being guided back when mistakes were made. And in that realization, his prayer deepened. Not just words anymore, but surrender. Outside the whale, the ocean continued its endless movement. Fish passed by. Currents shifted. The world lived on, unaware of the miracle happening beneath the surface. And above the sea, something remarkable was happening as well. Back in the city Yunus had left behind, his people began to feel something strange. An unease. A fear without a clear source. The warnings Yunus had once spoken, words they had ignored, began to return to their minds. They looked at one another differently. They remembered his sincerity, his patience, his quiet concern. And for the first time, they wondered, what if he was right? One by one, hearts softened. One by one, pride gave way to fear, not fear of punishment, but fear of being wrong. They turned back. They prayed. They asked for forgiveness. And Allah, whose mercy is greater than human understanding, accepted their repentance. Meanwhile, deep beneath the sea, Yunus continued his prayer, unaware that his people had changed, unaware that mercy was already unfolding on both sides of the water. Inside the whale, his body grew weaker, but his spirit grew stronger. He no longer asked why he was there. He no longer asked when he would leave. He trusted. And trust, when complete, has a quiet strength. Then one day, without warning, the whale began to rise. Yunus felt the shift. The pressure changed. The movement became upward. The darkness slowly softened as faint light filtered through the water above. The whale surfaced near a quiet shore, where the land met the sea gently. With care, by Allah's command, it released Yunus onto the sand. He lay there, weak and still, his body fragile from the long journey. The sun warmed his skin. The breeze touched his face. He was alive. But he could not move. Allah caused a plant to grow beside him, wide-leaved, comforting, protective. Its shade covered him. Its nourishment restored him slowly, gently. Day by day, strength returned. And with each breath, gratitude filled his heart. He had gone down into the depths, not to be destroyed, but to be transformed. And his story was not yet complete. When Yunus finally found the strength to sit up, the world looked different. Not because the land had changed, but because he had. The shore was quiet. No people. No noise. Only the soft rhythm of the sea breathing in and out, as if reminding him that everything moves by Allah's will. The plant beside him swayed gently, its broad leaves shielding him from the sun. It gave shade without asking. It gave comfort without speaking. Yunus rested beneath it, feeling gratitude in ways words could no longer express. He remembered the moment he had left his people, the frustration, the heaviness in his chest, the feeling of being unheard. Back then, his heart had been tired. Now, it was humble. He understood something deeply. Guidance does not always come through success. Sometimes it comes through being stopped. Days passed quietly. Each morning, Yunus felt a little stronger. Each evening, he reflected a little deeper. He prayed not because he was afraid, but because he was connected. Then, one day, the plant that had protected him began to wither. Its leaves yellowed. Its shade thinned. Its comfort faded. Yunus felt sadness rise in his heart. Not because of the plant itself, but because it reminded him of how quickly blessings can be taken away. Allah taught him through this moment. If he felt sorrow for a plant that grew overnight and died quickly, how much greater must Allah's mercy be for people, hearts that live, struggle, hope, and return? Soon after, Yunus was guided to return to his people. He walked toward the city slowly, thoughtfully, with a heart no longer rushing ahead of wisdom. And when he arrived, something unexpected happened. The people welcomed him. Their faces were different. Their eyes softer. Their hearts open. They had believed. They had repented. They had turned back to Allah. And Yunus felt tears rise, not of sadness, but of awe. Allah had accepted them. Not because they were perfect, but because they returned sincerely. Yunus resumed his mission, this time with patience deeper than before. He spoke gently. He listened carefully. He understood that guidance is not forced, it is invited. Years passed. The people remained faithful. The city flourished in peace. And Yunus carried with him the lesson of the depths. That running away does not end responsibility. That darkness can become mercy. That sincere repentance is always answered. His story became a reminder, not just for his people, but for generations to come. For anyone who feels trapped. For anyone who feels unheard. For anyone who believes they have gone too far. There is always a way back. Even from the deepest darkness. Even from inside a whale. As time passed, Yunus no longer thought of his journey as an escape or a punishment. He understood it as a lesson written not in words, but in experience. When he walked among his people now, he listened more than he spoke. He watched their faces, their struggles, their doubts. He remembered how easily a heart can harden and how gently it can soften again. He knew that guidance does not arrive when humans demand it. It arrives when hearts are ready. Often, when the city grew quiet at night, Yunus would sit alone beneath the stars. The sky reminded him of the ocean, vast, silent, full of signs. And he would think about the darkness he once lived in. Not with fear, but with gratitude. Because inside the darkness, he had learned something many never do. That when everything else is taken away, Allah remains. He remembered how alone he had felt at first, how heavy his thoughts had been, how uncertain his future looked. But slowly, he had realized that loneliness disappears when the heart turns fully toward its creator. The whale had not been a prison. It had been a shelter. A place where distractions were removed. A place where excuses no longer worked. A place where the truth could finally be faced. And that truth was simple. Humans are weak. Patience is learned, not owned. Mercy is greater than anger. Yunus began sharing these lessons with his people not as commands, but as reflections. He reminded them that mistakes do not end faith, and that returning sincerely is always enough. Some nights, children gathered around him, listening quietly as he spoke in a calm, steady voice. He never described the darkness with drama. He never spoke of fear to frighten them. Instead, he spoke of hope. He spoke of a prayer whispered when no one else could hear. He spoke of mercy arriving when it seemed impossible. He spoke of Allah's kindness, slow, steady, and perfect. And the people listened. Because they could hear the truth in his voice. Years later, when Yunus felt his strength slowly fading with age, he felt peace instead of worry. He had learned that life does not need to be rushed. Everything arrives at its appointed time. He trusted that his story would live on not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. a reminder for the tired, a comfort for the broken, a whisper for the restless heart before sleep. And somewhere in the depths of the sea, where light barely reaches, the ocean still moves quietly, holding the memory of a prophet who learned that even in darkness, mercy is near. As the years gently passed, Yunus learned to live without rushing time. He no longer measured life by results or reactions. He measured it by intention, patience, and trust. The urgency that once lived in his heart had softened into calm certainty. He knew now that not every silence is rejection. Not every delay is failure. Not every dissent is loss. Some dissents are preparation. At night, when the city slept and the world grew still, Yunus would reflect quietly. The memories of the sea no longer carried fear. They carried meaning. He remembered the moment when he had nothing, no control, no strength, no plan. And yet, he had everything he needed. Because Allah was there. Not visibly, not loudly, but completely. Yunus understood something that few truly understand. Surrender is not weakness. It is clarity. When the heart stops resisting, peace begins. He spoke less about miracles and more about mercy. He reminded people that Allah does not abandon those who return sincerely, no matter how far they have gone, no matter how dark the place feels. And when people asked him what the darkness inside the whale was like, he answered gently. It was quiet enough to hear the truth. That truth stayed with him until his final days. When Yunus felt his time in this world slowly coming to an end, there was no fear in his heart. Only gratitude. He had seen despair turn into mercy. He had seen rejection turn into acceptance. He had seen how a single sincere prayer could change everything. His story did not end with drama. It ended with peace. And that is how it remains, a story not meant to disturb the heart, but to calm it. A reminder whispered softly before sleep. If you feel lost, you are not abandoned. If you feel surrounded by darkness, you are not alone. If you feel weak, mercy is near. Sometimes, the way back begins in silence. Sometimes, salvation comes after surrender. And sometimes, the deepest peace is found only when the heart lets go. As the night deepens and the world grows quiet, let this story rest gently in your thoughts. And may your sleep be calm, your heart at ease, and your trust renewed.